Every single time I hit the brakes in this truck, I've got a plan for where I'm gonna crash. Today, I'm hoping to fix that. This here is a dual reservoir master cylinder, 8-inch booster, obviously firewall mounts, and then the bracket with the pedal to make it all work. I got all this stuff from Classic Performance Products, CPP. If you have been paying attention, I know there's at least one of you that has. I forget your name, I'm sorry, but I originally ordered this stuff from a company called Performance Online. Anyways, the moral of this story is they are trash as a company, and I would be very careful if you order things from them. I didn't know that at the time. I was told afterward. You were 100% right. Then none of this was in stock, then some of it would be in stock, then other stuff wouldn't be. They offered to ship what they had, but then when they went to do that, they didn't have what they said they had before. Nightmare mess. I had some time to wait. I went on a vacation. I was putting this off. So I was more than understanding. And finally, I just had to say, send me my money back. I'm going to buy it from somebody else. I ended up with what they call their Midnight series, which means this stuff is black instead of like that zinc gold, and the cap to the master cylinder is black too. It didn't really matter to me, but I do think it's going to look nicer under there. So this is the kit. There's a couple brackets. We're going to install it this weekend. And then hopefully when we hit the brakes, we have a little bit more confidence than we had before. I came in here last night and I already kind of marked out where this is gonna go. That's what this little pocket screwdriver is marking. I drilled a pilot hole. We do end up having to put a 2.5-inch hole here to feed everything through. But before we get too far, I think our first steps are gonna be crawl inside, get the pedal off of the arm, so there's some space under there to kind of fit the new one. And then we may end up taking the gauges out, believe it or not, because we need to get access to like the dash brace and the steering column bolts that are right behind it. I'm going to work on getting those gauges out. It looks like at least the speedometer would help. Also, if you hear some squeaking or I seem a little bit distracted, it's because I am, because we have a new helper in the shop and he does not totally understand that we need to get work done. So I got the speedo out and I actually have the bracket up in there. You can see this powder coated black part is part of it. Let me show you what it looks like underneath. So this is the setup down below. This is the pedal arm and the clevis that swings, right? This is your pedal action. The way my firewall dash steering column combination worked, when this was just free hanging, there was a big gap. So what I did was I just kind of pushed it up until this plate was flat to the firewall, and that's gonna be where our hole's at. Now, they give you instructions on where to drill. I think it's a better idea to get this piece mounted first and drill it with it in place. Mine will not stay here because it's got a little bit of flex in the bracket. So I drilled one of these holes and just shoved a piece of 3/8 hardware in there just to hold it. So this tape mark where my finger's pointing right now was supposed to be the center of the hole. You're supposed to go 1.5 inches from this rib and 6 inches down. Ours is actually gonna be, it's gonna be in here somewhere because this is the lower left. So there's gonna be a bolt, 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 and we're gonna end up taking this middle piece out. In fact, I can kind of show you because this is the plate. So that plate's gonna mount right there. That's where ours was happy, and I would much rather have it a little bit higher, but flat to the firewall, than low with a gap when we're building spacer plates. Let's hold this up there and see, kind of get an idea. But we're gonna end up somewhere in this region, but obviously closer to the firewall. A little bit tight to the fender with the lines, but we also may not use this prop valve because we're still drum, so we shouldn't technically need it. So if I could take that piece off and kind of save it for later, it's gonna clean up. So I think I got a plan to drill the big hole, because you really want to make sure that one's in the right spot. Here's my idea. They ship this plate in 2 pieces, so you got to do top and bottom. So I drilled those from the other side. So this is where this plate's going to locate. Now I can come in here with a hole saw that's just a little bit smaller than this. I have a 2 1/4. I'm going to approximate center. This is like 2 3/8. We'll get the pilot drilled and we'll get through it, and then we can like die grind or whatever the rest out to finish size. I don't think we need to go all the way to 2.5. If we did, it would be bigger than this plate, and I just don't think we need to do that. Rusty's currently sleeping, but he may not be after we drill a 2.5-inch hole saw through thin sheet metal. Got a drill press just so I didn't have to hurt my wrists anymore, and look at the first thing I drill is unpressable. If we did this right, there should be a rod end clevis, right? Oh yeah, There she is. I'm gonna grab a file. Let's kind of clean some of that up. I'm not gonna go bigger right now. I don't know that we need to. I'm almost certain we don't because the booster bellows can't be any bigger than the hole it passes through. So they might have said 2.5 and just to give you some room to mess up, but we're gonna go with what we have and see if we can't slip the booster in there after I file it clean. Now, here's what I think, here's how I think this works. This is 2 pieces of plate. I believe this piece goes on the outside and this piece goes on the inside to take up the gap that this rib is currently producing. It's kind of a cheesy setup, to be honest with you. Probably how all the kits do it. I've seen some guys just remake this plate and hammer this flat. If this was a nicer truck, we'd probably do that. Okay, I see a problem already. Couple problems. Can you see them? One, this fuse block is in the way. That seems like an easy move. You gotta create a little clearance here. And the other problem why it's not sitting flat is the contraption I have inside to keep it clamped up where it needs to be is hitting the push rod end when I come through. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna unscrew these 2 screws and I'm gonna try to get this fuse block just kind of out of the way. There's nothing saying it has to be right here. Looks like it's not gonna be that big of a deal to relocate. For now, we're gonna do that. Get some nuts on the backside real quick and then we'll have a little bit better look. In there and tight. Haven't dealt with this yet, but like I said, I think this is coming off. You can see obviously the push rod's not connected, but this will be our pedal swing here. All right, it's the next day. Progress has been slow with the puppy, but we are making progress. Anyways, here's where we're at. I went ahead and I got this little fuse block moved. I picked up one hole and I drilled another. I tucked this out of the way. This is mounted. I think what we're gonna do now is rapid disassembly. I'm gonna get the front end jacked up. We'll get the old master drained. We'll start breaking line. All that old stuff has to come out first, so I think that's what I'm gonna do now. Well, here's our old brake system. I took every stitch of line out of it. If we run short on fittings or something, we could reuse some of these and some of the T's. I was gonna try to reuse some of the routing, but once I got under there, I noticed that, well, I knew that I always hated the front. The way I routed it was like quick and dirty and it worked, but if we're gonna redo it once, we should do that. But then the line going to the rear, I didn't know. I pinched it on accident when I put the new rear cab mounts on. So we had very little flow to the rear. Like it bled out okay, and I don't really know how because it's underneath a washer on one of the bolts and that line is pinched like flat. So this upgrade was gonna make a big difference anyway. Now it's gonna make a way bigger difference because I think we were starving the most modern brake that we have, which is the rear axle. I'm not gonna bore you with hours of line routing and bending, but I will kind of give you the overview and then we'll check in from time to time. Now remember, I took the proportioning valve off that came with this because this is for a front disc rear drum. That's what the valve is for. We are front drum, we're drum all the way around. So what we're gonna do is out of the front and rear reservoirs, I'm gonna plumb in, I have 2 of these Willwood 10 PSI residual valves. That's gonna make sure we have pressure in the system that we need, the residual pressure, without needing that proportioning valve because it's built into that because they expect you to use it. So I'm gonna probably come out and put these, like they'll end up down here. Out of that, we're gonna go down one line to a T to both fronts and then straight to the back. I'm gonna run it along the driver's side because that's where the Colorado axle wants to pick it up is the driver's side, and it wasn't that way before and it was just a mess of adapters and stuff back there. I don't know exactly which one I'm gonna start with, but I think I'll build this little piece first. All right, so I got the front done. We're coming out of here through the residual valve and straight down basically, and there's a T down where my finger's pointing, and a short line that dumps off to the driver's side, and then the passenger side actually comes down and it actually goes under the engine cross member over to this side. You can kind of see it here just a little bit, and then ties into this front wheel. Turned out pretty good. I'm not as good at bending brake lines as my OCD wants me to be, but it doesn't look terrible. We need to start working on the rear, and here's how I think I'm going to do it. I would love for it to be all one piece, but I think that makes a service nightmare and a bending nightmare that I'm not quite ready to accept. So I'm gonna make it in probably 3 pieces. I'm gonna take one out of here, because this bend has to be really tight. So I'm gonna make one that comes out of here and heads back a distance, and then I'll make one off the axle that comes forward a distance, and then I'll make a middle piece that connects them together. So we're gonna have 2 unions. I think that's gonna be okay. That way, if we do have issues, we can get the pieces out. If we did it in one piece, fishing it through and getting the bends right, like I'm not good enough for that. There are people in this world that are. They work on trucks that are much more expensive than this one. So we're gonna have a couple unions. Here's the solution I came up with for the rear circuit. We're taking our 90 kind of straight back to the firewall. We got a clamp there and then it dives under. And there is a union kind of like almost where the fill hole is for the underfloor master. There's a union right there, and then I got a union in the back. So now I just need a pretty straight run and a tape measure to figure out how far that is. And then we're done with lines and we can start bleeding. And we're gonna we're gonna firewall bleed the master cylinder. Okay, I got all the lines made and tight. I took these off and I installed the bench bleeder kit, which we were actually just gonna firewall bleed. It doesn't have to be on a bench. This actually comes with this kit. The little plastic fittings, the tubes, the fancy clamps. So everything's hooked up, everything's tight. The lines aren't gonna get any fluid right now, obviously, because they're disconnected. We're just bleeding the master cylinder. I've got the pedal connected, so I'm gonna fill both reservoirs and we're gonna slowly pump the pedal until we see no more bubbles coming out of these lines. And then normally you would take one of these when it's all bled and there's no bubbles, and you quickly hook it to the other side and you install it that way if you were doing this on the bench to maintain your bledness of this. Since ours is already on the firewall, we're just going to do one at a time. Boom, slam the line in, and it will begin to effectively gravity bleed, and we'll just make sure the master stays topped up. All right, so now I'm going to hop in and slowly pump the pedal, and you'll see fluid move through these tubes and just kind of recirc, and it'll be real bubbly and gross at first. I'm going to go really slow so it doesn't spray you guys in the face, and we'll do that until the bubbles stop. I'm gonna keep pumping. I'll be back with you guys when we got this bled and we're gonna start doing the lines. I'm gonna quickly try to get these plastic fittings out and connect the actual hard lines without spilling too much brake fluid. And then we'll probably crack a bleeder and we'll let this start to gravity bleed, at least for the first little bit, so we don't have to pump it forever. I do have speed bleeders on this thing, which will help, but if gravity can do the work and we can start working on like the brake pedal or something, we may do that. All right, so instead of building the brake pedal right now, I think what I'm gonna do is crack a bleeder on each circuit, let gravity start to do its thing, and then my bench is a mess of cut off brake tubing and fittings and just, it's a disaster. We're gonna need that to fabricate a pedal, so while it's doing its gravity thing, I'm gonna clean that up and I'll be back with you. All right, so I got my bench clean and the brakes bled, to be honest with you. It was a little bit of a nightmare. I had some leaks, I had some stuff I had to deal with. Nothing I'm sure you guys haven't seen before, so I decided not to film it, but I do have it bled and I want to work on vacuum now. I may end up coming back and bleeding this thing again once we have a couple miles on it, but I have a pretty firm pedal and I think most of the air is out, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna pull our vacuum from right here, which I think is where they used to pull vacuum for wipers. We're not gonna do that. When we finally put wipers in this thing, they'll be electric. So we are gonna use this for our booster vac source. I knew this was coming, so that's why this plug is here. So I'm gonna finally get to take our plug out, put in Barbara here, and then the check valve is right here. So that's just a short little line. I have some, I think. Hose clamp it up. The other thing I just remembered that we need to deal with, and we're probably gonna do next, we have to change how we pick up our brake light switch, because that one doesn't work anymore because there's nothing connected to that lever. I think this kit comes with a little electronic switch. Let me go find it and see if we can't make that work. So it does come with a brake light switch and it's got a bracket for it. It's just like the 2 jam nut style, where depressed would be pedal not applying the brake, and then pedal applying the brake because it's going to move away from this. So this is a normally closed, you hold it open and then it closes. When the pedal moves away, it's just a couple spades. One side will be 12 volts, the other side will be to our turn signal switch, just like it was down here. So I'm gonna cut, that's this purple and red right here. So I'm gonna cut these free, fish them in, and wire this quick. Here's those wires I fished through. They're gonna be plenty long enough. This is the bracket where this goes. So this goes in here and it's depressed right now, right? And then when the pedal moves away, this arm moves away and it turns the brake lights on. Got that wired up. You can see everything's just kind of tucked up nice here. And I tested it, and when you depress the brakes, it does in fact turn the lights on, which is great. I didn't check it with the blinkers, but if that part works, I think the rest of it probably will. It is yet again the next day. We are almost done with this brake conversion. Everything's good except for a brake pedal. That's what we're working on today, and then we're gonna finally take it for a drive and see how much better it stops. Now, I got to thinking last night when I was sitting in there making race car sounds, I've always kind of hated how high or how tall the pedals are. So instead of matching what I know I don't like, I'm gonna go ahead and shorten it up. I was sitting in there working the pedals, like bleeding it and stuff yesterday without a pedal on it, so just the rod, and it didn't feel super low. Now, I have pretty long legs. You might feel differently, but I can still get full pedal travel without a pedal face on it at all. So I don't see a reason to make it this long and bring it way up, you know, so I'm driving like that. This is the key here. This is a 2-inch long fine thread 1/2-inch bolt. 1/2-20. It fits in that little adapter thing that came with the CPP kit. When this is screwed all the way into the shoulder, see I marked this flat black, and it's tight, like tight as I would want it, that is up. The reason that's important is I forgot to buy jam nuts. The idea is we're gonna cut this off and attach this, but I don't want the pedal like all cattywampus when we do that. So I've marked what is going to be the top. Now when we weld this, we will maintain that relationship, so when I screw this in, it'll be flat. Okay, here's our pedal surface. We're gonna touch this a little bit and get it flat, and then we'll weld that bolt to it. Got a Sketchy C-clamp, just kind of hold it on there. Once I get it tacked, we can obviously break that. I always do that. Here is our completed pedal. Now, if we did this right, when we screw it in, it should stop in an orientation that we like, and then we can adjust up down with this. Just like that. So as you can see, it's a touch higher than the clutch pedal and a touch farther back, but it's honestly, I feel like this is where they should sit. Call that good. All 3 pedals back in it. All right, before we road test, let's recap the kit a little bit, because some of you guys might be wanting to do this at home. First thing I could say, buy it from CPP. Do not buy it from Performance Online. I think it's the same stuff. For whatever reason, Performance Online can't get their shit together, and you may be waiting a very long time. Now that that's out of the way. Overall, I think it's a pretty nice kit. Like I said, I got the Midnight series, which is an aluminum master, and like the cap and the booster are black. It doesn't matter. I think you save like 20 bucks if you get the like zinc coated booster and the cast iron master, which will rust if you care about that. This one was in stock, the other one wasn't. I was kind of in a hurry because I waited like 3 months on POL, and so I was in a spot. So I spent the extra money, I got this one. I think it looks really nice though. The other thing, which we may be counting our chickens a little bit early here, but if you are drum like me, you can buy a disc drum 1 and just take the proportioning valve off and do something similar to what I did here. It's gonna work just fine. The drum master is a 1-inch bore. The disc drum is 1 1/8 inch. Our pedal is going to be 27% harder than it would have been if we went drum. I don't think it's gonna matter. The dual diaphragm booster is gonna be doing a lot in that situation. The bracket and mounting kit and provisions are generally pretty nice pieces. I don't have a ton of complaints. What I would say is I wouldn't drill any holes before you have it actually mounted to your firewall and your steering column. If I took the measurements that come in the kit and drilled a 2.5-inch hole, A, that's too big. You don't need 2.5. And B, they would have been in the wrong spot. My dash, my firewall, obviously this truck isn't straight. Yours is probably in better shape. There was a little bit of adjustment. I had to push the whole thing up to get it to meet the firewall flat because it was like this, and I went, so it says like 6 inches from the seam. I'm probably 5. So mount it first, drill hole second. That's how I did it. I think that's the way you should do it. This part up here is really fiddly and sucks. Take your speedometer out. You don't have to take the other side, but if it's out, that would be helpful as well. And then be prepared to make a brake pedal, like the pad. They sell one. You can also, if you got a welder in 10 minutes, you can make your own out of the stock pedal, just like I did. The other thing, this is important. Outside of the pedal rod and the master cylinder, I didn't take any of the other stuff out. The arm is still down there because it shares like a pivot with the clutch, and the arm acts as a spacer. That's hurting nobody, and it can just live down there. It's spring return, it's just tight against the firewall. If your truck's an automatic, that's not a problem that you have to worry about. So here's what I like to do. Whenever you work on your brakes, make sure you put your wife and your new puppy in the truck. That way so nobody misses each other if things go terribly wrong. Traffic is absolutely terrible, but we have to try it. So we're just gonna go around the neighborhood. Will you sit there, dude? So we're just gonna go around the neighborhood and get a feel for the new brakes, which I guess is good too. If they don't work, we'll get a feel for that. Let's do a test. Oh.
Sorry, God, you brake check me.
Well, hold on, because they're a lot better. Probably not the best time to take him because the whole thing's a brake test, but he's just gonna fall asleep in here. I was welding and cutting on stuff earlier, and he was slept through the whole thing.
Try not to hit the little girl.
I have brakes now. I won't hit the little girl. Okay, brake test.
Holding puppy.
It's a lot better. It's going to be so hard to tell on camera, but
How are
it's
you doing?
it's a lot better. I think it might lock them up if you really stood on it. I don't know if I want to test that. You want to bite? You don't like third gear. You want fourth gear. This is residential neighborhood. That's the steering wheel. Don't bite that either. Go back here and see what's back. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Hold them tight.
Did
It
it?
locked them up. All right, well, the brakes weren't good enough to lock them up. Okay, we'll head home. Man, you gotta be careful. The power booster.
He seems to like it though. He's fine. He likes his dad.
Did it leave marks on the ground? Probably left a bunch of dirt on the ground.
Oh,
Oh yeah, have a look back there. Look, there is a mark. Okay, now.
upholstery.
Hey, this is my Amazon seat cover. It's not gonna hold up to you. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode of TYGR's Garage. We'll be back when we can actually go on the highway. But for now, we got brakes, and it's much better than it was. I wish you drove it before. What? Okay, it's hot. I know. Let's get out of here then.